Yo, and welcome to the 78th episode of Lake of Rage, a Pokemon Trading Card Game podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Clementi, aka Mellow_Magikarp, and joining us once again is the up-and-coming Tord Reklev, fresh off of winning a regional in Peoria, Illinois, which I've been told is in fact a place. Tord, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here. We're doing excellent today.
Thank you for being here, Tord. You are always one of the most requested individuals on the podcast, and I think there's an answer to that everyone needs to know. Tord, you stream. What is your Twitch channel called?
I'm currently streaming for TCG Parks. You can find me on Twitch under TCG Park. That's the one. So I do stream pretty frequently these days as well, like almost every day. I'm streaming like on average like 5 days a week. So when I'm out traveling, I'm trying to like add a little bit extra, like when I get back. But when I'm traveling, obviously we'll miss a couple days of when I play the tournaments. But then maybe they have official streams that maybe I can like stream from there instead. By play. You never know. That's what I'm up to these days.
Ooh, are we gonna get a co-stream this weekend for Salt Lake City?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I was hoping to like get to watch and stream and have some sort of watch parties. Maybe that would be fun.
Ooh, I'm in. I'll definitely be there. Since I won't be at Salt Lake City, I need something to do.
Fair enough.
We got a very special episode for you today. I had to lead with that. Normally that's the closing, right? But I feel like people still don't know that Tord streams. And there's like a lot of people in the chat right now, right? But like there should be more. There should definitely be more. Because you just won a regional, Tord. And you won a regional with a deck that you streamed. So I'm curious, how did you prepare for Peoria? And what made you actually come to the decision to play the Lost Zone box with the 3 vacuums and 4 Path to the Peak? Something that you willingly leaked on stream. So how did you actually come to this as your deck choice?
I mean, like it's hard to not combine some testing and like on stream, right? It kind of has to be done, right? I can't be too secretive about everything, so it will obviously overlap here and there. And I was testing just a new engine, right? Like we haven't had like such a new different engine in many years, I think. So I really just want to get as much testing in with that as possible. And so I played a lot of it. I was pretty set on wanting to bring something with the new engine for the event. Trying to take advantage of like me having played the game for so long, right? And like being like hopefully more adaptive when something new comes out than others. Then maybe I could like try to build a deck that or a list that would be a little bit more optimized than others, and maybe include cards that were not as commonly played. Talking about like the choices in that list, I choose to go with heavy pads over the Pokestop and the canceling Kulong. Like Path is like in general just a stronger card than what canceling Kulong is. You do miss out on the Pokestop effect, obviously, right? But Pokestop is not a card I enjoy to play either, because it does so random, right? Some games you can just like completely screw you over, and you have to build your deck very different when you run Pokestop. You have to run like Pad and Rod and stuff like that, just in case Pokestop is mean to you. And I didn't want to like play the game like that. It's oftentimes just too much variance than for my liking. So like Pad made a ton of sense to me, like a really solid card overall, blocks down almost every deck in the format. And it also has a really great synergy with like what the deck tries to do. You try to like lock down your opponent's engines, right? So Sableye, super good against Bidoof, against Sobbles, right? So you lock down that. And if your opponent has something big in play, like a big engine, right? That are not that easy to shut down, Crobat, Kyurem VMAX, like anything heavy, right? Then Pat actually takes care of that again. So then you have a very effective threat against to shut down both or like all engines that your opponent can possibly play again. So that was like the main plan, and I just like I just played the deck a lot and changed cards as I went, and that was like the main thing, and that's how I ended up with the deck like that in the end. I also like included those cross switchers though, which were also pretty good. I think those were great.
So as you said that, I'm curious, is your approach with the deck as like a disruptive deck because you have the Sableye to pick off the engines and stuff like that? Is this less of like I'm going to take 6 prizes as fast as possible? Obviously you need to, but more of a like, okay, I'm going to try and stop my opponent from playing the game and then run over them. Like, is that kind of a mentality you get into when you're playing this specific list?
Like just in general, I think that like when you play a card game, a lot of the battle is about trying to find the cards you need each turn, right? And it's the same thing for your opponent. So if you are very focused on engines when you play the game, like when you build your list yourself, and when you play against your opponents, then you can make a lot of stuff happen if you focus a little bit on like just shutting down your opponent's engine. Because if you're just running into your opponent's active all the time, then that's usually what your opponent wants to do as well. That's how their deck functions. So if you're able to, you don't have to always play the game as straightforward as that, as attacker knocks out attacker until all the prizes are gone. You can also disrupt your opponent by going after the engines. That's like a kind of cool side quest you can go for if you want a different price trade here.
I've never heard anyone describe a TCG as having a side quest. So a little bit more about prep then. So you were into the Lost Zone engine because you thought you could have something better than everyone else. Like you thought you could build the deck and play it better than most other people at the start of a format. Is that specific? Like, is that just, this is so different, I'm going to take advantage of that fact? Or is this something you can do in every format and say, I am so experienced and I put so much time in that I can have an optimized list of something new and just wipe the field? Like, is that a mentality you always have when a new thing comes out?
I don't know. It sounded way worse when you said it like that. But I feel like I could have some sort of advantage, but not like something crazy. But like if I could get some, then that would be great, right? I like it's as for new formats, it's usually more rewarding to put in time and effort into lists because they are less explored, and like the less time a format has had, right? The more chance you have of actually finding something new that people haven't actually seen and tested against yet, right? So if possible, I always try to bring something new if I can. Like I do like the surprise factor a lot, and I figured that like it was not like an unknown deck by any means going into tournament. It was expected to be like the most played deck even, but I was hoping that the changes I made with the list, like the choices in the path, in the cross switcher, and like a very consistent approach as well. Like you will see that this list has so many switching outs. It's very easy to get to 10 with Sableye, which is, in my opinion, the most important part of the whole deck. Because Sableye is so powerful again that like getting to Sableye one turn earlier makes the difference between you losing or winning a lot of the time. So like all these choices, I hope that those would accumulate into something that that could give me some advantage. The other cool thing about the deck is that it prolongs the game naturally by being a single price deck. So it makes it very difficult for the opponent to play against, but it also makes it very difficult for you to play it yourself as well. So like you heighten the difficulty level of almost any game you go into compared to a lot of other decks where games are faster when your Pokemon are worth more prizes. So as long as the deck is like consistent enough, that's usually my problem. Like a deck isn't consistent enough that I want to bring it if it's single pricer, because it's very hard to stream attackers when they're worth one price because you need 6 of them, and that's a lot. This deck could actually do it very consistent. Like all the attackers need 0 or 1 energy, and they're all basics. And like at that point is actually fair, because you can actually do it properly. A single prize stage 1 or stage 2 deck already, like that's almost impossible. You're always going to miss out on attacks, right? Almost regardless how good your engine is. But if you barely need a single attachment and everything is basic, and your engine can deck yourself out by turn 3, I think it's okay. Then you can send the single pricers in, and it's consistent enough, and it makes the game difficult enough that it was fine. Like I always try to gravitate towards a deck that will make both me and my opponent have a hardest time as possible playing. That's what I find the most fun. That's why I played Urshifu for like a whole season with ton of one-offs. My opponents are like, I have no clue what you're throwing at me. And I was sitting like, I just need a minute. I'm just gonna try to figure out this puzzle, right? It's like trying to just make the game a little bit more difficult. It sounds almost sadistic, but it's really fun. So I do hate myself sometimes at the end of the day, like, because I had a lot of long, rough matches, and I still have to like play fast and very well to still be able to do things. But it is, I think the payoff is worth it, and it was a really fun to play this one.
To go off of the like long games and stuff like that, and to stick in the prep mode, like, so before you've played in the tournament, this is a deck we all knew was going to take a while. I haven't been playing IRL lately. I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to play the Lost Zone engine on paper much before the tournament. Did you get a lot of practice on paper, or was it purely on PTCGO? And if so, on paper, how did you know, like, yes, this is a deck that doesn't take too long. This is a deck that I can play and finish, however many games your goal is in the amount of time.
Yeah, that's funny actually. I shuffled up my first literal game with the deck ever in paper form, the first round of that regional. Never touched that deck in paper form before. It was funny. So I was like trying to figure out, okay, do I want to flip my comfy, or do I put something on it? I don't know. We'll figure it out. So it was definitely like an experience. As for time, I just immediately assumed that this was a best of one deck, because you do so many small things each turn, and another problem is that like all the things you do are also very difficult. You will naturally take up the majority of the game time. Like, even if you try to play relatively fast, since you have so many actions each turn, you'll naturally be the one that plays the most Pokemon each round. I had a couple of opponents that like were like almost mad about it, but that's just the habit of the deck. Like you will be using the majority of the time, right? If you're up against a Kyurem deck and they play Melanie attached attack, and it's your turn again, and you use 15 comfies, one supporter, and a lot of switch cards, then like your turn will take 5 times as long as theirs, right? It's no doubt. I figured that was fine. It's kind of like this unspoken agreement between the players when you go into a game. Like, this is a best of one. If you beat me this first game, you win. That's it. That's the match. But the other way as well is like, it's if you manage to win the first one, then it's very difficult for game 2 to finish again. So like tips going up against it, then like scoop game 1 very early if you think you're gonna lose it. If you play out game 1, then you can't be surprised if game 2 doesn't finish. It's very much the best of one deck, I think. You saw that like in top 8, we played a mirror of this deck. Like we barely finished. We couldn't even finish 2 games, right? Like we could have, but it was not needed. It was pretty crazy.
That was going to be one of my questions. So since we're there, the best of one deck concept, and anyone who's played like Malamar, for example, the Giratina spell tags is probably used to this, but we have a lot of players who have joined post-pandemic, or players like me who never actually played Malamar themselves because they hated it. Is this a deck where you're finishing in less than like half an hour? Or is this, when you say best of one deck, is this literally like a 35-40 minute to finish a game 1 most of the time?
This is definitely 35 to 40 minutes to finish one game, yes.
Okay, so it's not even close to getting the second game in.
No, not even close. You would have to have you have to have like a really poor start from one of the players to actually finish like 2 games even. You can it's essentially the same speed as Inteleon Charizard, and that deck is also very much a best of 1 deck. That deck doesn't finish 2 games, right? If you're up against that thing in a tournament, you're playing a best of 1 by all likeliness, right?
Yep, I bodied myself at Worlds by trying to make it a best of 3 deck. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend that one. But anyway.
Yeah, I see that. That also definitely feels like a best of 1 type of thing.
So one more question about the tournament prep. And this is about your list in general. So when I started playing back 2018, you were already big by then. People had already known you. This was post Zoropod, right? Everyone was like, the Tord Reklev build is 4 ofs across the board with maybe a couple techs here and there. And I was like, okay, this is how you build decks. Then you did Urshifu things. And your deck was, 41 ofs with a 4-4-2 Inteleon line. Are we now back to a format where we're at 4 of all of our consistency cards and we're past that like 1 of everything? Is this the new, like, this is the way you have to play the game when you're not playing Inteleon? Or is this just a early format, things are going to change a little bit?
Okay, so you're onto it. Inteleon enables crazy things. As long as the Inteleon line is thick and the search outs for the Inteleon cards are there, then it's completely fine to play a ton of 1-offs because you always have access to them. The problem again comes to like when you don't have that insane of an engine. Like when I started playing as well, like my like one of my first decks. Like for my first real deck was LBS, going all the way back, and that deck was also like just a tech fiesta, 1 of everything, 1 of every attacker, but super consistent because it had basically Inteleon. Like it had something better. It had pitch shot. You can search out 1 card every single turn, so you could always find your tech card or your 1-off whenever. So that was really strong. So it's all about just having a strong core that can search out whatever you want. Then it's fine to do all the 1-offs.
Mm-hmm.
That usually always been like a 4-off player if I can do it, right? Like the 1-off shenanigans or Shifu thing that's like a 2022 thing. Like I had like most of my career that's an exception. It's always been trying to just make things as stupidly consistent as possible. Like I truly believe that like if you can push a deck to a consistency level that just looks so redundant, it's silly, then it's really good. I always want to go a little bit above and beyond when it comes to like the norm of consistency, and just cut all the fluff if possible. So you saw that at my pure release, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I did a pretty ballsy call with cutting Echo Horn and Zigzagoon, and that was mostly on the fact that I counted on my opponent thinking I was going to play them anyway.
I would have.
So like if I'm almost decked out and I'm playing that deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't played a single Echo Horn yet or Zigzagoon, there's no world you would not play around that card, right?
True.
Absolutely no world. That deck usually plays 2 or 3 Echo Horn. Of course you would play around it. And that's also what happens. I won like multiple games just because my opponent simply couldn't take the liberty of not playing around it. Same with Zigzagoon. I think it actually won me straight up my top 8 match. John not be like daring to put down his Sableye Zigzagoon combo because he was like, yo, he has all his Echo Horns and Zigzagoon left. I'm just loose on the board, right? There's no chance. Like his whole deck in hand. What's the point, right? Have to go for this like other play instead, or else he knew he had lost. Like he knew, quote unquote, but like he hadn't, right? Because I didn't play those cards. But he couldn't really take the risk there. So it was one of those things. And now that you want to talk about the list, like going forward, right? Mm-hmm. Now that the list is kind of out there, then I think it would also make sense to see if you can add Echo Horn or Zigzagoon back in. But that's the beauty of it, right? You won't know if you play them or not. So it will depend. But that was definitely like a call I wanted to make. I want to cut the fluff there because they're not needed to win games. And if your opponent is playing around them, they actually don't do that much in almost any game anyway. But if you don't have them and your opponent knows, then you can get very punished for not playing them. Was like the main thing.
So do you think, is this something we hear all the time? Like, oh, there's so much information now, it's harder to metagame, or it's like easier to metagame, harder to innovate. You know, people always complain about that. Is this something that you can take advantage of? Or you're saying you are capable of taking, not you, but like people are capable of taking advantage of because you know the same information as everyone else? You're able to make these changes and be like, okay, I'm going to use your information against you. Is this something you think is like a very valid strategy?
Just like metagame and come up with a like a valid counter to what you expect, since everything is so open. We have all these tournaments. Is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah. Like most people say, you can't do that anymore, right?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely like a thing. Everything is very open, and like the formats move way faster than before. Like normally you would actually need all these IRL events to have meta shifts, but now you can have a meta shift just purely on online events in the meantime between them, which is crazy. Like example is after Peoria, suddenly Blissey become super popular and good online, which is crazy, right? Because it has good matchup into Lost Box again. And there was like one more factor though. It was also like the Curum list kind of cutting down on Napoleon, because they were like, oh, what's the point? People play Pat anyway, right? Why would I bother? 2 dead cards. And then the Mill Tank suddenly enters the battlefield and completely sweeps up the Curum matchup as well. Because now they don't have Napoleon to counter that anymore. They weren't really trying to counter Mill Tank, but it just like naturally happened, right? But now if they cut it, then suddenly Blissey gets 2 of the biggest matchups. It gets the Lost Box and it gets the Curum matchup. So then, of course, it can make waves and do stuff online. And then now suddenly, like maybe back to the heavy hitters again, right? Like going back to Giratina and Kira, maybe with Napoleon to counter the Miltank again, so that you have that matchup on lockdown. So I don't know. It's pretty cool to see how people think, and like how the meta like continuously evolves even between tournaments, like the RL tournaments.
So I'm curious, because I will get angry DMs if I don't ask this question right now. Is Blissey a real deck to consider either playing or, most importantly, teching for like Salt Lake City, which is in, at the time of recording, 5 days, and Lille, which is in about a week and 5 days? Is it like real, or is this online tournaments being online tournaments?
I mean, Blissey has always been like a really real deck in Japan, and it almost won an regionals in the NA as well. So I mean, it's the deck for sure. It's definitely a deck. So, if you how much you want to tech against it or care about it is another thing, though. But I will say that it is one of the easier decks to pick up, cost-wise, play-wise, anything. So and it does have some good matchups in the format right now. So it's definitely one of the decks I would care about that deck going forward now, just because it's good into, like, any deck that's good into the winning deck usually has a fair chance like afterwards.
So if you were
my list,
keep going.
Yeah, my list for Peoria, right, was not trying to beat Blissey at all. I got saved by a miracle. The one match I played against it in Peoria.
Wait, we'll get to that one. Hold it, keep going.
But what was I gonna say?
You were not teched for Blissey.
Yeah, I didn't tech for Blissey. I didn't play the Pokestop version. The Pokestop version actually pretty much a lot better against Blissey than what the Pad version is, because the Pad just actively hurts you. Because Charizard is your only attacker that do something in that matchup, and you can't use it because you only have your own pads. So for you to KO a Blissey, you need double vacuum. You need to vacuum Pad, and you also need to vacuum their tool as well to actually get that KO. And you play 3 vacuums, and you need 6 of them to get to 3 Blissey. that doesn't really work out, right? The math doesn't add up here.
True.
For you to get through 3 Blizzies. That's a problem. Obviously, you can try to poke the Blissey and hope they can't heal, but that's also really difficult. You can usually do that to one of them. Like if you attack one of the Blisses 4 times, yes, they might miss a heal card one of those times, right? And then you can use only one vacuum when you kill that one. And then you have 2 more vacuums for the next one. But the third one, no clue how you get through that one.
It's a situation where
even like the first 2 are difficult, right?
Oh yeah. No, I played against it on ladder. It's your list needs something to beat Blissey. It's where like,
yeah, right now it doesn't have much at all. The Pokestop version though has triple stop and 2 vacuum, so that one can actually kill 2 Blissey very straight up, like without too much of a hassle. And if you save your stops and vacuums properly, like you can probably get through 3 of them as well if you just like poke the first one until it can't heal anymore, and then you can do the triple charge play, which should work actually. So that one has a way easier time with the 5 outs instead of 3 outs. But I was willing to take that sacrifice for a lot of matchups.
Yeah, I feel like everyone in the world, everyone in that room was willing to take the L to Blissey. Because why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, how many were you realistically gonna face, right? How many actually play that deck? But
it was pretty successful though. 1 out of every 5 made it to day 2, which is not bad. But
I mean, that's not bad at all, actually.
No, yeah, I went through the data just because I looked at it and it was not what I expected. Gudra, 1/3 of them, Reggie's 1/4 of them, and Bliss Tank was 1/5 of them made it into day 2. And if you're curious, what about Baby Lost Zone? 7%. It was the least successful deck in the tournament that made day 2, outside of like Dialga, I guess.
Lost Book's least successful? Oh man. I mean,
it did win.
I guess it makes sense though. The deck has so many small things you can do every turn to just like completely throw the game. So I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like long days, it's easy to lose focus for sure. I lost focus in top 4, but somehow I didn't get punished enough. So that was great.
So off of that, let's get into the tournament run a little bit. The very first thing I always love asking is you're sitting down for round 1. You've submitted Lost Zone, a deck that you've technically never used the engine before IRL. Those Comfies that you've sleeved up they're pack fresh. They have never been shuffled or anything. They're ready to go. How are you feeling? You are at what we thought at the time was the largest regional ever, playing a deck that you've never actually used on paper. Are you thinking, I've got the play, I'm winning this thing? Are you nervous? Are you excited? Like, where are you at emotionally?
I'm like business as usual, right? I don't know. It's I was definitely like interesting. I was excited to see if the deck would work as well in theory and online as in actual paper cards, because sometimes that doesn't correlate perfectly. But I still think PGO is a pretty great tool for testing. So I trusted PGO, and I was like, my win rate here is high. It should be fine. Let's send it and see how it goes. It was definitely I was definitely a little bit extra of nerves going into not having touched the engine before IRL. I was really curious to how it would pan out.
How did day 1 go for you?
All right, so it was kind of like a roller coaster as well. So I started off the first match tying to Mew. Like going into the tournament, I was like, just give me 9 Mews and we'll get this tournament. And I find Mew first round, and I still managed to tie to it, which wasn't great. Because that was supposed to be like my best matchup.
How did you tie? Shouldn't the matchup because in theory, right? You said it's a best of 1 deck, and Mew also has really long turns. So how did that end up in a tie?
So I was going in thinking it was going to be a best of 1 as well. So I was trying my best. Game 1, like really tried to squeak out the game, but it just didn't quite pan out. I had like a relatively weak beginning, but not weak enough to scoop,
Yeah.
Just weak enough to come like that 1 turn behind that I couldn't. And I think I might have missed an attack. I'm not completely sure. I did end up like losing a really close game 1. And then game 2, I was doing my turbo thing again, where I just started not deck checking, throwing cards onto the board, and just doing my best to see if I could finish it. And I think I finished it in turns of time. So that was a very close call to get a tie. But I was still very happy with the tie though, because since I lost the first game, and as we said, if you lose the first game, that's probably just going to be a loss, right?
Mhm.
It's hard to finish the second game regardless there. But somehow like managed to finish game 2. My opponents were really kind to me and played relatively fast with me, so or else it probably wouldn't have worked out.
It's one of those situations where they match your pace, which is something I think we all instinctively do.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I do that a lot as well. If my opponent suddenly speeds up, then I often speed up as well. Like it's just a natural habit, right?
Oh, for sure. So you're 001. How you said it's a roller coaster. It literally can't go forward. It has to go up or down from here. Well, it doesn't, I guess, but what's happening in the next couple of rounds? Like, is it going better? Is it going worse? Are you starting to doubt your choice? Are you like, this deck's broken? Where are you at?
I was still like, after the tie, I was thinking, it's still fine. I still like my deck. Like the deck was still like running relatively smooth in both the games. Like apart from me being 1 turn behind, it was operating well. I do win the next couple of rounds. So I'm 201 going into the 4th round, which is going to be before lunch break. And
Perfect.
then I face my first Gudra. And I'm like, oh boy. I didn't want this to happen, but here we are. And I took a loss. I think that one wasn't that close, but it was mainly because I didn't have that Echo Horn. Like I remember both my Gudra matches.
Mhm.
If I had Echo Horn in my list, like it just need to be in the list, because I decked out like twice to find it. It would actually have been enough, because I just needed a way to take down something else.
Mhm.
But I got completely bodied by like a lone Gudra. I could not touch that thing. Just like very completely checkmated by it. But if I had like a way to take those 2 last prizes, then could have gotten there. It was still like relatively close. I was like, I went like Marnie Pat attack, and they had to figure out a way to heal it, and if not, I would take it out afterwards. But it was definitely not easy. It's a bad matchup. I can't say anything else. And I took my loss as expected in that round, and that was 2-1 going into lunch.
Before we move on to the next round, was it Arceus Gudra or Lost Zone Gudra?
It was Arceus Gudra.
Okay, so the good version.
Yeah, the good version, I guess. I'm not sure like which one I actually like the most. I barely seen the Lost Zone one being played. Played mainly against the Arceus one.
There's a reason you don't see the Lost Zone one played anymore. Just, I'd love to be proven wrong because I love the Lost Zone engine and Gudra, but it's just bad Giratina.
I mean, that kind of makes sense too. Like if you're bothering with the Lost Zone engine in the first place, you might as well play Giratina. If you're putting 3 energy on the stage 1 Pokemon, then Giratina is a pretty good Pokemon to put 3 energy on.
Right? Why tank hits when you can just Oko everything?
I mean, definitely seems easier, not gonna lie. So that sounds good.
So 2-1. This is a situation, personally, if I'm in it, I'm doing well, but also there's a little bit of doubt in my mind of like, I have to do really well to make it to day 2. How are you feeling at 2-1-1? Are you like, all right, no problem, I got this? Or are you kind of like, this isn't going super well?
Honestly, at 2-1-1, I was like kind of ecstatic because last regional I opened 0-2, so I was like, yo, this is way better than last time. I just need some time to warm up. Now we go, right? I'm thinking that it will still work out. So I had a good faith going into next matches. I did win the next 3. So then I was 5-1-1. I was like, okay, this is looking pretty good. And then I find my next Gudra. I was like, bro, not again, not like this. So I find another Gudra. It was exactly same situation basically.
Mm-hmm.
This one was like really tense though. I get him to a spot where I use shard and go down to 2, and I managed to like strip all his energies off the board by like using cross switcher and making life awkward and like targeting with Sableye and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have like a single energy on board. The problem was that like I had no way to one shot the last remaining Pokemon in play, even if I got the free turn. So if I had an Echo Horn again, and since I managed to steal that turn, I would have Echo Horned a basic and gotten my last 2 prizes. But I wouldn't even be able to. I wouldn't be able to like convert that 1 turn of leeway I managed to play myself into anything. So my opponent just went attached the next turn, and then killed me. Like with an Arceus, like double turbo and then hand attachment turn after. So it was also relatively close. Really missed my Echo Horn again. Would have been great. But that was like the only real matchup I cared about Echo Horn. All the other ones I was like, this is great. They have enough targets on board. Whatever, right? I don't need more from their discard pile. There was definitely a thing when my opponent only has a Gura in play and tank for a million every turn. So that's that was difficult. So then I'm 5-1, and I'm like, okay, win-in situation again for day 2. And then I'm up against the mirror, against the guy that went 9-0 in Baltimore, actually, or 10-0, like after first round day 2. So like, how did he get there? Then we play, and it was some of the most bricky games I ever seen. It was crazy. Like I opened Oranguru, I'm pretty sure. And I pass. My opponent opens Cramorant, and they pass straight back. I take a Colress, look at my 5 next cards, and then I use Oranguru, and I pass straight back. I find a single basic. I'm like, holy moly, what is this?
Oh no.
So like nothing is really happening. And then I think I top deck a Comfy, and then I just go off the turn after. My opponent's still struggling with setup.
So was this a long game 1, or did your opponent eventually?
This is actually turning into long game 1. It was just like a really awkward opening for both of us. My opponent also like sets up after, but are obviously behind. So I'm pretty clear to win game 1 the whole way. But they still play it out. Game 2, I'm also very clearly winning, but it's I don't think it actually finished in the end. I'm not sure. I might have like barely finished, like a minute to spare. But that was them like flat breaking like completely this time. Like was even worse than first game. So I almost got the donk. They opened like a Sableye pass or something. So it was a horrendous opening hands. I was not great, but I definitely were the one drawing better. My list was probably more consistent as well, though. To be fair, but like none of the decks were supposed to draw that bad, like in any world. But it happened.
No, it's the Lost Zone decks can get these bricky hands. We even saw a meme going around for a while, right? Where it was like, oh, the Lost Zone engines that you draw in real life, and it's like Cramorant the active and 6 dead cards in your hand, and it's.
Yeah, I saw that one. I love that meme. That was like that was my experience.
So now you're 6-2-1 at the largest regional. How does that, like, are you mentally like, I can make top 8, but I have to go what, 501? Is that like?
Yeah, I was actually like talking about like people with it well. I was like, okay, I made day 2, but I made day 2 at 6-1. So does it even matter? Like the chance of me hitting top 8 there is so slim. I literally have to go 5-0 if I want to have a chance of making it. If I go 5-0, I can ID the last one. But that's like 5-1 isn't even good enough. I have to go 5-0-1. It's crazy. So
you're aware of the situation and how bad it is.
Yeah, I'm aware of how poor my situation is. Yes, I'm. Like I know that the chance of me coming out on topper is very slim. I needed a better record going into day 2 if I want like a realistic chance of hitting top 8. But you know, some days they just work out.
What are the decks that you hit in day 2? And were any of the Swiss rounds memorable? I mean, they're all memorable, right? But like, were any of them like, oh, this was a really good one?
First round, I remember hitting a Kieran Palkia.
Free
We had a
matchup.
pretty, yeah, we had a pretty long game. Game one. Um, he he wasn't drawing the hardest, but he didn't miss much attacks either.
Mhm.
But I was definitely like fairly ahead in that game. I think I got like the turn one Pat Cram Marnie, or maybe not Marnie, but like I definitely got the turn one Pat Cram attack. So it was pretty strong. He might have missed the turn two attack because of it, and then I got like that one extra attack in. So I was like in a solid spot right off the bat. So I won the first game, and it still took a while. He wanted to play it out. I'm honestly not sure why he would, because like he was very checkmated the last three turns.
Mhm.
Then game two rolled around, and it was time like 3 or 4 turns in, and that was really it. He was like a little bit frustrated about that one, I remember, because he was doing way better game two. He had like a pretty sick Cheryl play as well, actually. That popped off that game. So I think he was favored to win game two. Like he hadn't won it or anything yet, but I think he was favored.
Okay. But
In
it
that
sounds
one.
like there was nowhere near enough time to actually finish it anyway.
No, for sure not. Um,
What
it
about,
would need at least 5 more turns, I think.
what about the next round?
I'm not sure if I can remember every
Or
single round.
even if the order's out of it, just like what are some of those matchups? You avoided the Gudras, I assume.
I played a really close match against Intel and Palkia as well. I remember it ended in like kind of spectacular fashion. I had to go like I got Marnied, and then I had to deck out completely to find all my pieces to do my start stuff. Um, so that one was pretty cool. That was also very much a best of one.
Mhm.
Um, like I think like almost all my games day two was best of one, because like day two, like my opponent is definitely way more tense as well, right?
Mhm.
Because like it's more at stake than in day one. Especially if you have like a very winning record day two, then like you want to make sure all your decisions are on point. And obviously I want to do the same, right? So game one took very long on that day. So I played against that. I think like the most memorable one. I only played 5 rounds, right? Because I did the last one
Yeah.
here. Um, the most memorable one, or like the one I was sure I was out in, was the Blissey matchup that I found.
Yeah.
I was like 3-0 maybe, and I found Blissey. I was like, okay, that's it. Run that. See you next regional. That's we tried.
How did you pull
But
that one off?
I was up against Blissey. It was on a game player. My opponent drew a card too many off of like, or didn't draw a card at all. Actually, it was what was it? It was something with the lucky energy
Oh.
um, that resulted in a double prize penalty. And as we talked about, right? My deck can kill 2 Blisses, but not 3. Um, so with that double prize penalty, it gave me a win condition, so I could knock out 2 Blisses, and I think that was like essentially the only way. My opponent was super cool about it though. Like it was totally on board with it being his own fault. But it definitely feels bad. I felt bad for him as well, because that was a really good matchup for him, right?
Mhm.
And like if it was not for that, he would have won that match.
It hurts, but one of
Uh,
those like you're responsible for your own board state, right?
yes, exactly.
So then
Um,
you end up in ID situation.
Yeah, like I still needed one more, and so like that was that was like the fourth round. So I had won 4 now, and I still need another one. So even after that again, I still wasn't in. It was crazy. Um, so they decided to put me on stream for the next one, and I'm up against Reggie. Another pretty poor matchup, if I would say so myself.
Oh yeah.
I'm up against Reggie's. and they put me on stream. I was like, man, do I have to lose my win and in again on stream? we did this 2 weeks ago. I have to do it again. But somehow that Reggie deck did not work at all. That deck just could not function in any way. Turn 1, my opponent's hand was empty. Like nothing left in hand. 0 card hand. I was like, okay, I mean, as long as he doesn't top deck anything amazing, we good to go then, right? And like you can see the whole game on stream. Like it was recorded and streamed if you're interested. But essentially, my opponent goes down to 0 card hand, turn 1, making me absolutely no shot of moneying them. And I get the turn 2 Sableye going first, which is pretty amazing. Like you can like almost count on it going second if you really try for it. But I was going first and like 2 cards in lost zone after my turn 1. And so I got 8 more the next turn.
That's so good.
Like quite a jump, but you can do it with like the heavy vacuum version. That was what happened.
I assume a lot of the times in a matchup like that where it doesn't matter, you go play your own path, vacuum your path, and get a +2 in the lost zone, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's like the perfect play against Reggie if you can pull it off. Just like use your path for fuel for your lost zone engine instead. So I got like a really early Sableye and I started spreading around. Actually, I hadn't played much against that Reggie matchup either, but I found like a really cool way to go about it when I sat there. So it's like if I spend 1 turn with Sableye to just spread everything out, then I should be able to like take my 6 prices or like do 6 attacks and take 6 prices afterwards. And you can even like if you don't do 1 on each Reggie, if you go like 2 on them actually, then even if someone gets healed, right, you can spend 11 to knock 1 out, and then you still have like 1 extra to go to set up another one again, right? So if you do like 2/2 on like multiple of them, then like even if they heal like a couple, then you still have like essentially an extra one set up with the extra damage counter placed on the Reggie, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Then it's fairly easily to take all those prizes as long as you can stream Sableyes. It also acts like a bonus that you can use Cram to finish it off as well, which is like pretty cool if that Reggie ever hits the active. So that was pretty fun. Like in the game we played out and it didn't matter. It didn't end up mattering at all because like my opponent attacked once in 2 games. That was it, right? Like literally 1 attack. I was surprised he didn't manage to attack more after he actually found an attack, but I went escape rope and he was super scared of the Zigzagoon I didn't play. So he didn't want to promote that Regidrago so I could kill it with Cram Siggy. Which was fair enough, but it played horrible into my actual deck. So I got very much away with it. I was camping a double cross switcher pair in hand that I was expecting to use. Like after he promotes his Regidrago, I still want him to be bricked, right? So I was like, okay, I will rope. He will give me the Regidrago, and I will cross switch afterwards. And then he gives me the literal target I wanted to cross switcher. I was like, okay, I mean, I'll save this cross switcher for later. Now. That's fine for me. I don't think I even ended up playing. So it really didn't matter either. But I was surprisingly was that scared of me having like the absolute nuts. So they didn't want to give me the Regidrago to get out of that spot. But I was still like just to play down the cross switchers though.
No, if anyone gets a chance to go back and watch it, like everything towards explaining, the match itself isn't good. But if you're curious how to play the matchup, I think you do a good job of both the explanation there, but also showing in a couple of the turns of like these small little maneuvers is really nice. I also have to say, I don't know if you got a chance to watch some of the stream games, but I have never seen an archetype brick as much on stream as Reggie's did the whole weekend. It was bad.
I mean, I can't believe I didn't see it. Unfortunately, I only got to experience it, and that was lucky enough. I think
that was a normal one. We saw one of the rounds they put on Zach Lesage with Reggie's up against a Zoroark V-Star without Dunsparce, And it was like, this is miserable. Like, this is an auto win. And he bricked so hard that it ended up being a tie because Zorak was able to steal a game. It was bad.
Oh my god, that's incredible. Actually, that's so funny.
So now you're going into top 8. You were again streamed for top 8, and it was beautiful. It was a very fun game one to watch, I think. I don't know if there's anything you want to like add to for anyone who's seen the stream. And anyone who hasn't, 10 out of 10, go back and watch it. It was amazing. But that matchup against John Ang with Giratina, so mirror-ish, right? He has technically 4 dead cards in his deck that you don't have. But is there anything else you want to add to that one?
It was honestly like a really fun game. It was the funniest part about it was he wins the coin flip and he doesn't really know which if you want to go first or second. He was like, "Man, I really hoped you would win the flip here because I don't want to make this decision." He ended up telling me to go first, though. I think in retrospect that was fine as the Giratina player, because like he only plays the one Sableye anyway. So he's not really trying to get to 10. Like he's just trying to basically trade me with crams, right? And if anything, he has like 2 ways to steal a turn. That's with his Snorlax. Set up Snorlax and Greninja early game. And then my cram needs a cross switcher to do something, or I need a Sableye. And that's just like his way of getting ahead. Or he can go second and get the turn on cram attack. Then he also gets like the 1 price ahead. He also played the Zigzagoon, so he had technically the Zigzagoon Sableye play available that I didn't, which could have been a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had it in hand as his combo at one point, but he was too scared to use it again because he played around my Zigzagoon and potentially my Echo, so he didn't want to do that, you know.
Yeah, the situation where
like,
if we're in an online open decklist tournament, we might be talking to someone else about winning Peoria regionals right now, but because it's closed decklist, you took advantage.
Yes, closed decklist is a big deal. I also did like a really cool play that I think like went kind of unnoticed. But I had some damage counters leftovers, and I put 60 on his Cramorant.
Mm-hmm.
And this was to force him to net that thing to play around Echo Horn. So I wouldn't just win with my Sableye next turn. If I start putting damage on the Greninja, he doesn't have to net it, and he only has 1 net left. So if I put everything on this Cramorant and he nets it, he doesn't have net left for his 6 again because he only has 1 left. So I effectively like completely block off his power play in his last turn because he has to play around my Echo Horn that I don't have in my deck by netting the Cramorant now. That was like my favorite play of the whole tournament, I think.
That's actually so good too, because that's the type of play that like that's one of those things that differentiates the great from the good players, right? The question is, am I going to make the optimal play for my win condition, or am I going to bluff and force my opponent to make a misplay, even though they don't think it's a misplay, right?
Yeah, I mean that was that was like the coolest mind game trick I pulled off like successful in a long while. I was really happy about it. I'm not like even sure if that was what he was thinking, but I think so. Like, or else it wouldn't make too much sense to actually net there. But it was really fun. I was quite happy with that play in the moment.
That's, I don't know if I assume John doesn't listen to the podcast, but if he does, he's definitely kicking himself at this point for that, for falling for what is a very good bait. I would have fallen for it if I saw that play, and I assume I would have.
Like, you have to use the information you have available, right? And if you don't have the information that I'm not running the Zigzagoon or the Echo Horn, right, then like that's kind of the play you have to do, or else you basically dead on board almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I have my whole deck in hand. What are the chances that I don't have it yet, right? So didn't play any of it yet. I have to have them.
That's true. There's no way you prized all 3 of them, right? Because you obviously are playing the Japanese list.
Obviously, I only had 2 prizes left. I actually couldn't have prized them, right? I only had 2 left. So.
And that goes back to everything we talked about earlier, where you can use that extra information that everyone has to your advantage. And you did, and it won you, well, potentially won you a game. You might have won regardless, but we don't know that.
Yeah, like if would probably came down to Marnie, because if he like popped off his combo a turn earlier, then like I would have Marnie, that he would probably have found the game-winning piece off of the Marnie again. So it was a really close game, really tense. And like with how time panned out as well. If he wins the first game, then it would be difficult for me to finish game 2 as well. Same way it was difficult for him to finish game 2 when we played.
So in the top 4, we hit Kyurem, I assume. This one was not streamed.
Yes, I hit Kyurem Palkia in this one with double Empoleon in Sacred Week regular.
I assume the paths carried did their job.
They did. I want to talk a little bit about it though, because
for sure.
Like at this point, my brain is starting to get kind of fried. I like the top 8 game was already like really intense. So going into this one, I'm gonna be honest and say like I wasn't like 100% there. So game 1, turn 1, I already make like a big blunder because I'm just like not thinking properly, and I find 2 pads in my first few cards, which is like amazing, right? I win the flip, I go first, and I put one in the lost zone and I put the other one into play. And then my opponent swiftly answered with VIP pass, double Empoleon, trading court, goes into Empoleon. I'm like, oh my god, what did I do, bro? Oh my god.
That is a rip.
And that was kind of crazy. So I sit there for multiple turns just staring at my hand and board. I'm like, what did I do? If I had a pad, I would just win here. He has nothing because he sacrificed his entire start to do that play. He went like quick ball Luminion for Irida for Balloon. Like he wanted that more than anything.
Yeah.
And I thought it would work. I swear. I used Scratch 5 times that game.
That's Sableye, right?
That's for the first attack of Sableye. It does 20 damage. and I promise those 20 damage actually ended up mattering in the end.
Oh, I believe it.
So I still don't quite know how I managed to win that one, but he did pass a lot as well because he sacrificed his entire start to get that Empoleon playoff. Like a very risky, but it looked like it would be work kind of thing. I top taking Colress a couple turns in, and Colress gives me nothing. I'm still like, oh my god, I have nothing. So I continue scratching, and at one point I do top deck another Colress into my pads. I'm like, okay, here we go. And my deck actually starts working again. And like so far, it's just a couple Empoleons with some damage on them. He has a Luminion in play. He has a Kyurem VMAX. He has a Palkia. He has a Bat. And I'm trying to like scramble some sort of strategy together so I can grab all my prize cards here. And I somehow do. There was like a key moment in the first game here where I'm like, for me to win in 3 turns, I need this Empoleon to not have a wash energy anymore, so I can snipe it off with Sableye. And by some miracle, like my opponent Zachary, he decides to move his wash energy to another target, so I can actually knock it out with Sableye, and that solved my whole game. Suddenly, I was like, I don't even have to do the cross switch Marnie pad parade cheese play. I can just take the knockout, and then I can go into my shard and I can win this game. That's amazing. And it somehow pound out. It was actually crazy. But the price trade is really good for Shard and Sableye. You trade evenly until Shard just takes a one shot, right? So you can actually be quite a bit behind and still win the matchup.
It seems like good for your deck, right? Like if the Empoleon doesn't brick you completely, it's like good.
Yeah, I also think the matchup is pretty good. It depends on how they tech as well, right? And how they play, and also their engine. But like it's made to be like pretty fine against you. But I definitely think that you need to commit. Like his plan was mainly just Empoleons, and that one wouldn't work here. So that I felt like I had the upper hand as long as I didn't break on them.
Yeah.
But if you want the actual upper hand against a deck with Pat, you need to play some sort of healing. You need collapse the stadium, to bump one of your big guys, like preferably with damage, you need the Cheryl, or you need multiple wash energies. You need something extra if you want a real advantage.
Mhm.
But I think he only had that one wash energy, and I don't know, but he somehow moved it, and I I found an opening so I can knock out that Impullen with Sableye. I think he figured that like um I think he protected his Kyurem, so I couldn't go Sableye to settle for my shard to knock it out, but like that wouldn't work out too well with my price trade. It
Mhm.
was crucial that I was able to get that Impullen, so I could go my 2-2-2 plan instead of going into the VMAX. It would take me one turn too many. So and also like it would cost me too many gust effects. Like with how the game lined up, I could win with only a single gust effect and a shard, which was way easier to pull off than like what I thought I had to pull off.
Yeah. So it's one of those where it sounds like your opponent and your game plans had a you disagreed on how you were going to win, and because of that you were able to take advantage.
Yeah, I think so. I think he had like another plan in mind for me, because like usually you try to map out your opponent's plan and your plan, right? And I think he had mapped out a different plan for me that he tried to block, which was very very lucky for me. So then I somehow win that game one, and game two, I open Cram, and I open 6 cards I can't play,
Oh
and then I
no.
pass, and he doesn't dunk me, and then I draw another card, and then I pass again, and then he dunks me. So then we move on to game 3. I was like, okay. I seen this before. I know. we had like we played the finals of UIC, and we did the exact same thing there actually.
Oh,
Played
that
like a
he's
long
on
game.
Sil Valley Metal, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I opened the Wimple, and he dunks me. Game 2 of that final too. So I was like, oh, this is familiar. I've seen this before. And then luckily it panned out the same as well. And in game 3, he had the same opening as game 1. He did the exact same thing, like all in, double Empoleon. But this time I was smart enough to keep a pet around. So this time I just put on pet, and like I could actually attack immediately. So the turns that game 1 he spent passing, this time I was sitting there with Sableye and just going ham on his board instead. And he even conceded like after a couple passes. Like I still would need like 2 or 3 more turns to close it off, but I think my board set was too good, and his hand was like nothing. So he conceded that one like kind of early actually, but it kind of made sense.
It's one of those two, you like you said, the matchup you can get behind and still win, which says how bad Kyurem is if they get behind, how unlikely they are to win.
Yeah, I mean, I was very unlikely he would win from that spot. That's for sure. I felt pretty in control, being able to attack with Sableye like 3 turns for free, right? That's usually enough to win.
That's any matchup. So then,
I mean, no doubt.
finals against Cal streamed. What, like, can you walk us through any part of it? Preferably, I need to hear your thought process on game 2.
I mean, we'll get to game 2. Okay, so like game 1 is fine. He doesn't have the best poker face in the world. Like it was very obvious that his hand was like absolute trash, right? In the first game. I didn't thought it was that bad, but it was horrible. And I really didn't want to Marnie him, but it was also one of those, I know that he has a second Ultra Energy in hand. And like all he really needs from there is a Palkia V-Star. And if my opponent is not playing a single supporter, right, or a ball card or anything, then what can possibly be in their hand, right? I'm thinking it's probably Palkia V-Star, it's probably Incense, or something along those lines, right? But by a miracle, it wasn't any of those either, right? But I was thinking, like, at least if I Marnie, he will have a smaller hand size, and he might just be like keeping his hand big to bait me a little bit as well, to like not Marnie him so that he can play down everything next turn. So I do end up with the Marnie, thinking like okay, it's fine. I'm already a little bit ahead. I get the first attack here, and that's usually fine. Like good enough to get there as long as I don't break myself. He gets like honestly a god hand off the Marnie again, because he gets Irida, Palkia, Greninja off the Marnie. Like really saved him there. And honestly, that's better than getting the Sobble setup. Because you don't want Sobbles in that matchup. Like putting down Sobbles is really bad. Those are 1 prize for 60 HP. Palkia V-Star is 140 HP for 1 prize if you like divide it by 2 for like value for the damage output you have to do. That's twice as much as Sobble. So Sobble on the board is bad. Like it's more than twice. Like it's twice even if you play the 70 HP Sobble. So it's way better value just streaming Palkias than having to use Sobbles, if possible. So like the game like actually wasn't that bad for him. He did miss 1 attack, I think, because he had to go like after I knocked out his first Palkia, his hand wasn't good enough to stream the next one. So he had to go with his next Palkia and pick up a stadium. So he missed out. So I get the first attack, and he also missed out on 1 attack. So then I was technically like 2 attacks ahead of him, which was fine. Which means I could play it really safe. So I played it in a way where like I went cram, knock out the Palkia instead of trying to Fizzle and Sableye there, and like use my damage better, because I was that turn ahead anyway, so I didn't have to take that like risk. I could just play it like very safe and go like with my resources instead, because you don't have to win with a lot. You just have to win with 1 turn, right? That's still good enough. So if I'm ahead, I'm gonna play the game safer and like be more careful with my resources and attacks, just to ensure that I'm not missing anything.
That makes sense.
So like in the end there, right? I kind of gave away 1 attack. I was 2 turns ahead, so I gave 1 back just to I could like really lock in and be sure I won that. Which sounds like kind of backwards, but it's oftentimes the better play. So I felt like I played that pretty well. I'm really happy with how that went. And like I like at the end of game 1, right? I had got intel that he played canceling Cologne. So that influenced my plays a lot at the end there. I really didn't want him to scam me with a cross switcher Cologne out of nowhere play.
Yeah.
I also was pretty sure he didn't have a way to kick my stadium. So the only real way for me to lose was in my second to last turn was using Shard, knock out his bench Palkia, and then give him an opening to go cross switcher, V-Star Power, Greninja, knock out Manaphy and something else for game. So instead of knocking out the bench Palkia with Charizard, which would leave him with game on board, that would give him a chance to win that turn. If I don't do it, he has no chance to win that turn. And all I had to do is use the Shard next turn instead. There was 1 play I could have been punished by here. And that was, I went with Marnie Pat instead. If off the Marnie Pat, he draws Water, Palkia, Boss, and knocks out my Charizard, and I miss my Clara, I actually lose the game. My last Clara was prized, and I draw 2 out of 4 prizes. So if all that happens, I lose that game. But I still figured it safer than letting him keep his 8-card hand and hoping he didn't have canceling Cologne cross switchers or Boss. But it was like a relatively close call, I think. Both of them are super unlikely to happen, but they could happen theoretically, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, which small percentage am I trying to play around here, right? And I went for the Marnie Pat. Somehow you hit Roxanne off of my Marnie, which was like slightly scary. My deck was really thin though, so I had like at least 2 vacuums left to still attack with Shard. So that was okay, but I was like slightly scared. He doesn't even find attack though on the Roxanne, so it doesn't really matter. But like if he did, then I would have to dig a little bit to see if I could find my vacuum. I did draw it straight off Roxanne though, so it was okay. I could just like promote it, but if I didn't, then could have been scary.
You can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but Roxanne can hurt the Lost Zone deck, but by the time Roxanne's live, you usually have like, I don't know, 15 cards left between your hand and your deck, so not a lot's gonna happen.
I don't think I lost a single Roxanne the whole weekend actually. It was like if you just actually actively go through your deck and put everything in the loss zone, then you are pretty fine against it. And it's like, okay, you get Roxanne to 2. Like in most of your board states, you will have Comfy Balloon. And then you have a top deck that's 3. You have Comfy, then you're up to 5. In those 5 cards, if you play 18 switching out, the chances are you see one of them in those 5. And then you get to see 2 more potentially if you haven't seen a supporter already. And then you also have Oranguru to see another one. So there is a lot of cards you can see. So even Roxanne isn't bad. Like in that, and then with Marnie, right? You're seeing like 10 cards. It's like very hard to break off a Marnie too. This is even granted you didn't even get to use Oranguru to stack something before it happened.
Yeah, there's like a lot.
Yeah, Roxanne and Marnie, like it's helping, but as long as you can't turn off abilities, they're not that impactful. Like the famous N, right, was often paired with ability lock.
Mhm.
N, if you didn't ability lock, did absolutely nothing, and it's still true to this format as well. If you don't ability lock and your opponent can just like go off on their board, it doesn't really matter if you lose your first hand, as long as you tinder your deck and you can still draw cards with them.
That makes sense. You have to get the like Roxanne path against a deck where it actually matters that there's a path in play.
Exactly. So Roxanne path against Mew or Kyurem is incredible, but against the other decks, it doesn't matter that much again, right? Like any deck that has some sort of engine on board still, which is why I've been liking like the single price, engine lately. I like played Bib Palkia and I played the Comfy deck here. They're really cool because they're very hard to turn off. So they work even through hand disruption.
Yeah, because like, oh, I'm going to Roxanne you and hope you don't hit level ball. Sure. Or I'm going to Roxanne you and then you're just going to B-barrel for 5 more cards.
It's like, yeah, like against B-barrel, the Roxanne does very little. In most cases, it almost help you because you get to reset your hand. And then just draw more with B-barrel.
And then game 2 was the nuttiest way to, spoiler alert, win that I've ever seen. There's been a lot of cool stuff on stream actually, but that's up there as a moment of like, oh my gosh, he did it.
That was really fun. It was a crazy series of events and sequencing in the final there. So he opens Sobel. I used to choose to go first, and he just goes with a straight pass. He's not happy about it. I wouldn't be either. That was just not great. This Sobel pass in the final is the last thing you want to see, right?
Yes.
But when I see that, that's the only thing I want to see. So my heart is racing a little bit because I'm like, okay, I just need to get this to get this attack off. I'll do anything to get it. So I went as hard as I could. I even opened Cramorant, so that wasn't an issue anymore. So I could like spend all my cards just trying to get 4 cards in the loss zone and get Cram back inactive. So I use Comfy, nothing. Use another Comfy, nothing. Use a third Comfy, nothing. I was like double pad. It's like absolutely nothing I can build in here. I'm like, okay. I mean, last chance is this Monkey. If Monkey hits, Monkey had 2 chances. He could hit a switch card into another Comfy, or it could hit Colorus, which would be the best card it can hit, into a switching card.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it hits a switching card, I will have to go into next Comfy, and then that Comfy needs to hit another switching card. So that's one way, or you could just hit Colorus directly. And you would like if it hit Colorus by some miracle, we'd be so likely to win because it's so many switching cards in the deck. And as fate would have it, Monkey hit the Colorus, and I was just like flipping the cards at that point. I'm just like, okay, if there's a switch, I win, right? If there's any out of this Colorus, I can just promote this bird again and take the knockout. And I think second card, I find it already. Didn't even look at the rest, just slammed it down, and that was it. That was the game.
And then you win the largest regional ever with the new archetype.
Pretty cool. I was over the moon excited. That was really fun, especially because like my run was on the brink of death like the whole way. Like you heard me talk about like I took the double loss to Gudra in day 1. and I found the Blissey player in day 2, and like it just didn't seem like it was meant to be. But somehow I got the odds on my side and pulled through. With all that said, though, I felt like I got really rewarded for my play, because I did a lot of I had a lot of difficult games, which was fun, but it was also exhausting. And I managed to find like those cool plays sometimes to get her. And my favorite, again, I think in top 8, doing the 60 on the cram and just forcing out this last net to play around the card I don't play.
Bro, the biggest brain. That is actually such a sick play, though. So, lastly, you had already kind of alluded to a little bit, but how the list evolves moving forward. I don't need you to leak all the changes or anything like that, but I think the best like little soundbite in the world is this exact 60 okay to play at Salt Lake City and or Lille regionals in the next 2 weeks?
I mean, yes, it's definitely completely fine to just send the same thing in again. It doesn't have like any crazy counters beside the Gudra and the Blissey matchup. The Blissey matchup is the worst one because it requires the most amount of cards to tech for it. While Gudra is not bad enough of a matchup that you can't actually beat it if you add if you add a one Echo, I feel like it's pretty even-ish, but you still need to play well and draw well. If you add 2 Echo Horn, you should be almost favored in the matchup. And if you add a 6 again on top of that, then like Gudra should be like almost one of the matchups you want to see at that point. But you can reset the attack so easily. They cannot attach any tool cards because you play triple vacuum, and they don't play pad because that blocks themselves. So you should have pretty easy access to one shot. 1 6 again, 1 net, combined with a Shard reset on them. Then you take the knockout, and Echo Horn, you will easily take 2 free prizes with Shard as well. So essentially, you have to spend 4 turns to knock out something, with Shard being able to like swoop in the late game. Obviously, like it all depends on how you open. Maybe you have awkward lost zones and stuff. Like maybe 6 again or Echo Horn ends up in the lost zone, right? And then it gets more difficult. But if you have the cards in the deck, then you have more outs, and it makes it way easier. But Blissey though is a rough one. Both Gudra and Droludan is about the same in difficulty level, I think. Droludan may be a little bit more difficult than Gudra because you don't have that one shot option with Shard there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a matchup where like the Echo Horns would be like crazy, because then you can just ignore the Droludan completely and just like go straight for the Arceus the whole game. I think depends if they play Rod, I guess, if they can play around the Echo Horn that way.
That's so hard for Duraludon, though. To find
I mean,
their rod,
yeah.
Tord,
If you want to do any changes, then Echo Horn and Seisegun is probably on top of my list.
those sound like definitely some of the changes I would have thought about as well. Because like, Bro Goon is so good. But Tord, congratulations again on winning Peoria Regionals. Because people are going to be rooting for you. Are you going to be at any more regionals in this current format?
Yes, I will be. I'll be in Lille. I will not be in Salt Lake. I said before, but I was just like really excited about taking a couple of weeks back at home. I've been traveling a lot. I don't think I actually been in my apartment more than a week at a time in the last half year or so. So I'm pretty happy. I get to like spend 2 full weeks at home. Like that's pretty good. So I'll take those weeks, and then I will do my weekend trip to Lille in 2 weeks' time.
Congratulations on also being at home for a couple of weeks. If the people want more of you, we already alluded to some of it at the beginning, but if people want more of you, where can they find you, and any shout outs that you have?
Shout outs to TCG Park, my partner, and where I stream. Shout out to all my friends, my family. Shout out to my girlfriend and the cross switchers. Shout out to you as well, Mello. Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Oh, I got it. Oh, you're the best. If you want to follow Tord, I'll have a link down to his Twitter below in the description box of the podcast app or whatever. And you can also catch the Go Live tweets and stuff like that on there. Myself, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at mellow_magikarp. And there's been another episode of the Lake of Rage podcast. We'll catch you all next week.